very warm welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Soares. Tonight, law enforcement officials say they believe Nancy Guthrie is still out there. We'll have the latest from the search for the 84-year-old and her daughter's heartfelt plea for her safe return. Fast-growing rage in Europe as the Epstein files continue to reveal just how far the convicted sex offender's influence really stretched. And after his searing rebuke of ICE at the Grammys, Bad Bunny is in the spotlight once again ahead of his Super Bowl performance. Report from that news conference in just a moment. But first tonight, the fallout over the Epstein files in Europe is deepening by the hour, but not across the Atlantic, where the scandal first began, if you remember. Here in the UK, the government has been rocked to its core. Prime Minister Keir Starmer is fighting for his political to Mandelson as ambassador to the US. That is despite knowing about his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. Mandelson is now under criminal investigation for allegedly passing government information to the late sex offender. Today, Mr. Starmer apologized to the Epstein victims. Have a listen to what he said.
I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you. Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him. And sorry that even now you're forced to watch this story unfold in public once again. But I also want to say this. In this country, we will not look away. We will not shrug our shoulders. And we will not allow the powerful to treat justice as optional.
In the US, meanwhile, President Donald Trump has been spared critical scrutiny despite being repeatedly mentioned in the files. He faces no summons to testify about the newly disclosed, unverified sexual assault claims against him, and his Justice Department has no plans to release the millions of Epstein documents that it still holds. Mr. Trump denies wrongdoing and considers the case closed. Let's get more on both these strands. I'm joined now by Stephen Collins in Washington, who has explored this. And Stephen, you and I were talking about this, 48 hours ago. This is something that I keep hearing here in the UK. So just help us kind of understand and make sense of why the Epstein files and the release of the files thus far is causing more uproar here than the US, because, you know, worth reminding viewers, we had that apology from Prime Minister Starmer, but he's not named in any of these files, whereas President Trump has been named over 1,000 times.
That's right. And just watching that apology from the Prime Minister there, obviously he's doing it for political reasons, but that level of sincerity towards the victims is something we've never heard from the President. He's talked about how the Epstein files are a hoax. The entire Epstein affair is a hoax, that it's a conspiracy against him. So the kind of level of attention and potential for justice that victims are getting in the UK is completely different from that in the United States. The 2 miserable days that Starmer has gone through, taking heat from all sides, have no real comparable here. I was just listening to Josh Hawley, who's a Republican senator from Missouri, and he was being asked whether Trump should now go to the congressional committee, which is ostensibly investigating this issue, now that President Bill Clinton has agreed to testify. And Hawley said, well, no, Trump talks about this all the time in public. We all know what he was going to say. Our colleague Manu Raju then asked him, well, the testimony would be under oath. Isn't that important? And Hawley said, well, no, he says the same thing in public as he says in private. So there is absolutely no level of pressure from the Republican Congress for Trump to do more to get to the bottom of this Epstein issue. And of course, the Justice Department, which is releasing these files and holding back, as you said, another 3 million of them, is completely controlled by Trump. The Deputy Attorney General who's running this case, he's Trump's former lawyer, Todd Blanche.
And just to remind viewers what we heard from Todd Blanche, I think it was on Sunday, he said there's a lot of correspondence, there's a lot of email, there are a lot of photographs, but that doesn't allow us necessarily to prosecute somebody. And then 24 hours ago, in that comment that he made to our colleague, that we should not repeat, it was so incredibly misogynistic. The president went on to say, you know, that we need to move on from the Epstein files. I wonder whether Americans, putting the politicians aside, whether Americans are prepared to move on. Do they trust the DOJ, given, of course, the connections you just highlighted there? Because many of the Epstein survivors clearly don't.
I don't think if you look at the polling, you can argue that Americans trust the DOJ, that they're happy with the way this has all unfolded. Yet at the same time, is it something that could break Trump's political project? Could it severely damage his presidency? There's no sense in which the kind of existential threat that Starmer is facing over this is repeated in the United States. I think one reason is because we're so polarized over here, even over an issue like the Epstein files, with the plight of some of these survivors and what they've gone through. And they're, you know, with Trump, there are so many tempests and political storms every week. There's probably 3 or 4 issues that are even more controversial this week alone, over elections or over his foreign policy, which are even more controversial than the Epstein files. So it's almost like he drowns the zone with controversy, and no one can really grapple with either of or any of these issues or understand the magnitude. And I think, therefore, their political effect is somewhat mitigated.
Yeah, and this flooding the zone is something that we have seen before from this administration, right? There are so many issues going on that politicians, I'm guessing, on both sides of the aisle have their attention divided. So it is stunning for many commentators, Stephen, here in the UK and across Europe now, as this continues to reverberate, that they say, you know, they're saying that many of the names from the United States are not coming to light, whereas the rest of Europe is really feeling the impact of this.
Yeah, and I think that we have seen a little bit this week. Bill Gates was pressured to talk about some of what the emails said about him, and he, of course, once again said he'd done nothing wrong, but he did regret dealing with Epstein. There was the head of a big law firm that was forced to step down from his position last night because he was corresponding with Epstein right up to 2019, the year that he killed himself in jail. So as the lack of government accountability becomes clearer, I think some of the media coverage is putting the focus on these people who are named and asking the question, well, how is it possible that no one knew what Jeffrey Epstein was really like, especially since he went to jail and emerged from a jail in Florida in 2009 and then reconstituted many of these networks of the rich and famous. So I don't think this is going to end. I think when the Clintons go up to Capitol Hill at the end of the month, that is going to be another pressure point. But really, for real scrutiny, I think it may end up having to wait in the event that the Democrats win the House or the Senate in the midterm elections in November. That may be the best hope of meaningful oversight in the United States of the kind that you're seeing in the UK right now.
And I'm guessing many will hope within the administration, probably hoping that people would have forgotten about it by then. Stephen, appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Bringing you up to date with some of the breaking news that we have been following here. We were bringing you a press conference in the last, 20 minutes or so from the sheriff in Pima County in Arizona. He said that Nancy Guthrie is still out there. Those are the words he actually used. That was a hopeful message from him about the disappearance of the mother of NBC Today show anchor. You see her there, Savannah Guthrie. Law enforcement is still asking for help as the search now enters its 5th day.
At this time, we have not identified a suspect or a person of interest in this case. We are working our best to do that. But to be clear, we have nobody of interest or any suspects that you would consider a prime suspect. We're just not there. We're not there yet.
Well, the 84-year-old was taken from her home early Sunday morning. The sheriff just confirmed that blood found outside her home was, in fact, Nancy Guthrie's blood, and that was found on the porch. He also explained when a suspect may have been detected by the home cameras. This was the bit. Have a listen.
Sunday morning, early morning at 1:47 a.m., the doorbell camera disconnects. At 2:12 a.m., software detects a person on a camera, but there's no video available. They have no subscription, and therefore it would rewrite itself. It just kind of loops, right, and covers up.
We also heard from the sheriff, by the way, that there's a $50,000 reward for further information. He said there's a large and complex investigation. New leads, he said, are coming in, but he also said we have nobody of interest, not there yet. So we do not have any suspects. And he added there has been no proof of life. We'll get more, of course, and bring you much more on this search from the sheriff in just a moment when we speak to one of our experts. We're going to leave that for just a moment and turn to Washington, because Donald Trump admits the tactics used by federal immigration agents in Minnesota may have been too extreme. In an interview with NBC News, he said that he personally ordered Homeland Security to reduce the number of agents deployed to Minnesota by 700. He said he hates talking about ICE all the time, but said the immigration crackdown is totally focused on deporting criminals. He admitted the operation could use, quote, a softer touch.
And speaking of Minneapolis,
I learned that maybe we can use a little bit of a softer touch, but you still have to be tough. These are criminals. We're dealing with really hard criminals. But look, I've called the people. I've called the governor. I've called the mayor, spoke to them, had great conversations with them, and then I see them ranting and raving out there, literally as though a call wasn't made.
Let's get more from our Kevin Liptak in Washington. So, Kevin, give us a sense of what else the president had to say, or any acknowledgement by ICE of some of these tactics.
Yeah. And just to point out, it's extraordinarily rare to hear the president acknowledge any sort of mistake. You know, this is someone whose entire political project, I think, is sort of built on doubling down and retrenching in his viewpoints. And so just that sort of very brief suggestion that he could have used a softer touch in Minneapolis, I think, is significant. And when you listen to Tom Homan, who is the border czar who the president dispatched to Minneapolis to try and lower some of the tensions there amid these scenes of chaos and scenes of protest, you do detect a difference in how they're going about all of this. You know, they're reducing the number of agents there by 700. To be sure, 2,000 will remain there. That's still a significant number, and it's more than the Democratic leaders in the state want to see. Well, the way Homan puts it is that they were able to do this because they're getting more cooperation from some of the counties there. The counties have decided to allow ICE agents to go into jails to apprehend undocumented immigrants who essentially they are looking for. That's something that the administration had been pushing for quite some time. The way Homan put it was that it would be, quote, smart law enforcement, not less law enforcement. He also described a sort of reorganization of ICE and CBP, sort of funneling them up into the same chain of command to essentially sort of streamline operations in that city. So Homan, I think, certainly trying to make the point that they are still working to carry out this mass deportation agenda that, of course, the president ran on in 2024 as a candidate, that had been a major part of his political proposition to the American people. But I think in listening to the president there, it's clear that he recognizes that these scenes that had been taking place in Minneapolis had started to become, you know, an enormous problem for him politically. And you've seen this entire issue of immigration kind of flip. You know, this was a very strong point for him politically, and it has sort of gone in the complete opposite direction to now becoming a major vulnerability. And so when he says that he thinks he could have used a softer touch, it is quite a rare recognition by him and on his part that he may have made some sort of error in judgment in how he was carrying all of this out. Now, when you listen to Tim Walz and Jacob Frey, the governor of Minnesota and the mayor of Minneapolis, they say that they want to see this go much further. They want to see all of the agents leave Minneapolis. They also say that they want more participation in the state level investigations into the killing of Renee Good and Alex Pretty. You know, the state has essentially been iced out of the federal investigation, and they want more evidence sharing on that front. And so even as the president says that they're changing some of their approach here, it certainly seems clear that that is not going to be enough to satisfy some of the critics of all of this.
Very briefly, do we know whether the administration's reached out to the family of Alex Pretty and Renee Good? I mean, he was talking about the softer touch. I haven't heard the full interview. I'm not sure whether he was asked about this.
In the past, the president has said that he has not spoken to those individuals. When he's talking about Renee Good, the thing he constantly comes back to is having heard from someone that her family are supporters of his, that they're Trump supporters, that they were of the MAGA movement, which I think gives you a sense of how the president is approaching all of this. He has essentially said that that made him feel even worse about her killing than he ordinarily would have. But there is no suggestion yet that he has spoken to members directly of either of their families.
Thanks for clarifying that, Kevin. Good to see you. Thanks very much. Negotiators from Russia, Ukraine and the US say they will meet again soon. That's after they wrapped up 2 days of trilateral talks in Abu Dhabi earlier. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the next meeting will be held in the near future. His chief of staff called this week's negotiations truly constructive. US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff says Kyiv and Moscow each returned 157 prisoners of war to the other side. It is the first prisoner swap since last October. Meantime, Ukraine's defense minister says Elon Musk's Starlink satellite internet terminals used by Russia have been cut off. Kyiv claims the move is leaving some Russian forces on the front lines without the ability to communicate. For more now on the Russian perspective, here's the very latest from Fred Pleiken in Moscow.
Well, it seems as though the talks, as Steve Witkoff, the U.S. envoy, put it, seem to have been constructive. And that's certainly something that we're hearing from the Russian side and from the Ukrainian side as well. In fact, Kirilo Budanov, who's, of course, the head of the presidential administration of Ukraine, he came out and said that they were extraordinarily constructive, as he put it. The Russians, for their side, also said that there had been movement on the talks. However, those comments came from Kirill Dmitriev, who's the chief Russian negotiator, ahead of that round of talks that happened today. It was quite interesting to hear that Steve Witkoff also said that there had been some progress made on key issues, but he also said that difficult issues still remain. And one of the things that appears to have happened in this round of talks is that, first of all, they went into a trilateral meeting, which is sort of a large meeting with the U.S., Russian, and Ukrainian delegations, but then also tried to compartmentalize things into working groups to try and work through some of those very difficult issues. Of course, what we've been hearing from both the U.S. And the Ukrainian side is that territorial concessions that Ukraine might have to make as part of any sort of peace agreement are still something that's very difficult. For the Russian side, of course, they also say that they certainly want to have all of the Donetsk region of Ukraine as part of any peace agreement. Those are still some of the very difficult things to work through. The U.S. side has said that at the same time as this is going on, the atmosphere is still very constructive. Certainly that prisoner swap that happened today, they say, is also something that's a direct, tangible result of these negotiations and the constructive atmosphere that they're in. Again, 314 prisoners being exchanged. The Ukrainian side saying that 139 of the prisoners that they received now had been in custody in the Russian Federation since 2022. So certainly a large step for the Ukrainians. It sort of sets the tone. And one of the things that we picked up on is that Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, he also came out and said that they want to continue this momentum that has now started and want to have the next round of talks to happen as soon as possible.
There's Fred Pleiken reporting there from Moscow. While there are fears of a dangerous new arms race involving the world's two military superpowers after the last remaining nuclear treaty between the US and Russia expired today. For the first time in more than 50 years, there are no limits on the size of nuclear arsenals for the two countries. Moscow and Washington did agree to resume high-level military communication, though, nearly 5 years after those open channels were suspended. Recently, US President Donald Trump said any new arms agreement should also include China, an idea Beijing does not appear to be on board with. We're going to take a short break, but we'll see you, of course, on the other side.
Weekdays on CNN.
Tonight on 360.
The stories that matter.
This whole area is just engulfed in flames.
From a trusted voice.
We witnessed something nobody alive has ever seen before. You said that AI could wipe out half of all entry-level jobs. How soon might that happen?
Fearless eyewitness.
Just got an alert to go down to a bomb shelter.
Every night makes sense of the world.
How do you make the case that USAID's previous mission was in the United States' national interest?
Anderson Cooper 360. Weekdays on CNN.
Here's what you can find out front. We are in an unprecedented moment, direct and in-depth. Do you think that Pam Bondi is hiding something? Getting ahead of the biggest stories and giving you context. Do you like capitalism?
Aaron Burnett out front. Weekdays on CNN. This is One World.
The world's top headlines with some of the world's biggest players.
Stories that captivate from two unique perspectives.
What does that mean for wider escalation?
One World with Zain Asher and Biana Golodriga. Weekdays on CNN.
Everything you own is here under the water in this your house.
Yes, lots of everything.
CNN joined Saudi forces on an evacuation voyage.
It's very, very hard for me.
I'm worried about all the people we left behind.
Aid cannot just go through here into Gaza. It's got to go through an Israeli checkpoint, and that slows things down. Every breath is a miracle for these babies born prematurely during the war in the Gaza Strip. The hospital staff are determined not to give up.
I have to fight back.
You can't leave it for the gang members.
Leave it for the gang.
So much of the land is dug up and destroyed.
I fear for my life.
They're demonstrating with flags and banners. I can't even see anymore. They're being tear gassed.
This is nuts.
We don't have the easy way. It's just Gen Z power and power for the people.
CNN World Sport.
Non-stop action year-round.
I have a lot of things to give to the football.
All the major events.
I love where the game is going right now.
What does it take for me to be even better?
And tournaments.
The emotions sometimes are impossible to control.
The latest highlights.
Women's sport is having a moment that it should have always had.
And exclusive interviews with your favorite coaches and players.
We're going to keep this thing rolling.
You're right. Don't miss CNN World Sport. Only on CNN.
I want to bring you more now than one of the top stories. I was talking to you in the last 20 minutes or so. We had been hearing from the sheriff of Pima County in Arizona, who says the FBI, there's been no proof of life and no follow-up communication connected to the possible ransom letters linked to the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, as you can see there on your screen. She is the 84-year-old mother of a prominent U.S. news anchor, Savannah Guthrie. The search for Nancy Guthrie is now in its 5th day. The Guthrie family has spoken directly to the potential kidnapper. They asked for a safe return as well as proof of life. Have a listen.
We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her.
A family there hurting deeply, as you can imagine. Let's get more from our chief law enforcement analyst, John Miller, who joins us now. John, I know you were listening in to the sheriff in Pima County in Arizona. We're 5 days in, and I heard from him they don't have any suspects, but there has been no proof of life. Your takeaways from what we've heard?
Well, a lot of information has just been given to us through that press conference. Authorities very forthcoming. One of the things we learned is that there was blood on the steps outside the front door. The DNA tests show that blood belonged to Nancy Guthrie. That is suggestive, at least, that in some struggle, perhaps while being abducted, she may have been injured. We also learned that a camera was removed from that same front door, taken off its bracket, one of these Ring doorbell type cameras, which might have been useful in recording or capturing an image of the abductor. We also got a better sense of the timeline, and these are the significant hits. She is at 2:12 a.m. The camera system detects a person moving around the property. At 2:28 a.m., the pacemaker that she has that communicates with her cell phone is separated from the cell phone. So if that is when a person was detected and when her phone was left behind after she was removed with her pacemaker from the property, it suggests that whoever did this may have been on the ground in the house just 16 minutes before leaving with Nancy Guthrie. We also know that a ransom note that they're looking at and that they are trying to determine whether or not it is genuine contains certain information about the house that only somebody who was in there during this abduction might have known. That sets a deadline of tonight at 5 o'clock presumably for a first payment, and a second deadline of Monday. So we're at a very critical stage here.
Two dual questions really on both those points, because I was listening to the press conference as well. So the software detects a person, no camera, there's no video available. That was at 2:20 a.m. Do we know why there was no video? Was that disconnected? Just explain that. Because when he talked about the software detecting a person on camera, but no video, that wasn't very clear to me.
Right, and that has to do with these different services, whether it's Ring doorbell camera or a Nest camera, inside, outside. There are various kinds of subscriptions for these. Some subscriptions say the cameras will be on. If you are out and you want to dial into them and look around the house while you're not there, you can access those cameras. Other subscriptions say those cameras will record for various periods, 24, 48 hours, and if you get an alert of movement in the house or a person, you can rewind and see what that is. Apparently, according to the FBI, this was not that type of subscription that came with recording. And what the sheriff told us is they've been working with the various companies saying, well, do you have any way of retrieving video from that kind of subscription? And the answer, it turns out, is they say they don't.
So you said 2:20, well, we heard from the sheriff, 2:20 a.m., of course, that was the software detecting a person. 2:28, that was a pacemaker. Was there any sign in those 80 minutes, was there any sign of forced entry into the property, John?
So the sheriff was definitive on, he doesn't know where those reports of forced entry came from, but he was also clear that he wasn't going to confirm or deny them, meaning what they're trying to do is they're trying to preserve certain information so that in any further communications with the person behind the ransom note or any other people claiming to be the kidnappers, they'll be able to elicit those kinds of details without knowing that it was out there with certainty in the public.
Let's talk about that ransom letter. There was so much prior to this, and there was this was the ransom letter that was sent to the media. I think that's what the sheriff said. The question of what they will be looking for, the verification, all that process, just talk us through that.
So what you want ultimately is a proof of life, meaning you're demanding payment and you're demanding it in, in cryptocurrency through the internet. Before any payment, you have to show us that you have Nancy Guthrie, that you are the people who has the victim. So that could be in the form of, the best case, we want to talk to her. Put her on a phone, call from some encrypted line or however you want to do it. We want to be able to ask her things and have her answer things so we know it's her and not some AI recording that was created from interviews that she did with her daughter on the that were gleaned from the internet. The second best thing is control questions, which is if you really have her, ask her this. What was the name of her puppy dog in the 4th grade? Who was her favorite teacher in high school? The kinds of things that only she and the family would know. So far, they have none of that.
Yeah, and as they piece it all together, as we try to make sense of it, and now we have the timeline, what are the big standout, big hole that you have at the moment in terms of inquiry for the FBI and the sheriff here, John?
Well, the big gap right here is, are we dealing with the kidnappers, or are we dealing with someone hiding behind an encrypted email chain, demanding money through another encrypted chain? Because one person has already been arrested as an imposter demanding ransom, and we're going to learn more about that shortly. This letter contains certain details that have leaked out since then, some details that had not leaked out at the time that the email was received, and a couple of things that are accurate that could have been guessed, but also could be actual observations from someone who was there. So that's why it's important that they verify this before they do something like send a lot of money to somebody who is another imposter.
And the question of money is something I was discussing with my colleague Max Foster just just upstairs. Who decides? Is that the family decides where to give that money in the US? How does that work?
That's a family decision. The FBI is never going to, the government is never going to pay a ransom. The FBI is never going to tell someone that they should or shouldn't pay a ransom. That is obviously a highly personal decision, but they said during the press conference that is up to the family.
John, really appreciate for laying it all out for us, and our thoughts and prayers, of course, are with Nancy and the family, and the Guthrie family. Thank you very much, John. Appreciate it. Take a short break. See you on the other side.
Tokyo takes pride in keeping its city clean. But why? Edo spirit is what keeps Tokyo clean.
All new Inside Africa. See a continent in transformation as trailblazers evolve culture, technology and industry across Africa and beyond. In Mozambique, the Kinani Dance Festival brings the city of Maputo to life.
Maputo, you can see dance everywhere, and any space you can see dance, and this is the magic of this festival.
Inside Africa on CNN, in association with Zenith Bank. This is the Redwood Forest in California, home to some of the tallest and oldest trees in the world. Since 1918, more than 205,000 acres of these forests have been protected through the work of conservation groups, foundations and the local community. Believing in a better future, be part of the movement. Find out more on cnn.com/call to earth, in partnership with Rolex and its Perpetual Planet Initiative.
How do we connect you with stories from around the globe? We examine big ideas and all the details. Join me for Connect the World with Becky Anderson.
Weekdays on CNN.
Let's talk business. This is Marketplace Middle East, where we update you on the latest financial moves across the region, from Dubai to Saudi Arabia, Oman to Egypt. Discover what is transforming the region's economic landscape. Join me for the latest trends and innovations, making investing in the Middle East more attractive.
Marketplace Middle East, this weekend on CNN.
Bad Bunny is a phenomenon.
He rivals someone like Beyonce or Taylor Swift.
Bad Bunny will be headlining this year's Super Bowl halftime show.
The bigger he gets, the more he doubles down on his Puerto Rican-ness.
This is an American show. It doesn't really make sense to me.
Your business, who better than the biggest star in the world?
Bad Bunny and the halftime show, Rhythms of Resistance on CNN.
I'm Valeria Leon in Mexico City, and this is CNN.
Well, the Super Bowl is set for Sunday, but the spotlight is never just on the game. It's on the halftime show too, and its headliner this year, Puerto Rican singer Bad Bunny, has become a flashpoint, angering President Trump and his MAGA base. Bad Bunny is condemning the administration's immigration crackdown, and he'll sing in Spanish at America's biggest sporting event. The NFL has staunchly defended its decision to have him perform, citing his global fame. Last week at the Grammys, Bad Bunny made history, marking the first time an all-Spanish album won Album of the Year. And he got a standing ovation too. Speaking at NFL pregame event earlier, he talked about returning to his Puerto Rican roots and paying tribute to the island's history. Let's get more from CNN Español's Elizabeth Perez, who's in San Francisco, and just heard Bad Bunny speak at this Apple Music event. Elizabeth, great to see you. I listened to a portion of it. What I was waiting to hear or to be asked was about really the elephant in the room and his comments at the Grammys regarding ICE, when he said ICE out. Was that asked? Did he address this?
Well, hello, Isa. It's a pleasure to be with you. Yeah, everybody, I think we were waiting to see if he could, talk a little bit more about that. He tried to make this press conference about music, about happiness, about all the expectations people have for Sunday's halftime show. And he avoided the topic. I think he's a very genuine person, talking about his connection with his roots and his music, and that he wants to bring happiness to everybody through what he brings to the world, which is music. And he left that out, but we cannot forget that on Sunday he won 3 Grammys, and actually the last one was historical because it was the first time a Latin singer wins the album of the year for an album totally in Spanish, as you said. And when he was receiving the second award for urban music, he said that. He said, "Eyes out, we are not animals, we are not savages, we are human beings." And in this moment, he didn't say anything, but I think that sets the tone for what we can expect on Sunday. Maybe he will do a reference through music, maybe he will surprise people, but what we know is that he is ready, he is committed to do a spectacular show. We know that the Super Bowl, since it started in 1967, it was very little, but then Michael Jackson changed everything. And this year, having Bad Bunny as the solo Latin performer marks like history, because even though in the past we have had Gloria Estefan, we had Shakira, Jennifer Lopez, this is the first time a male singer is going to perform alone in Spanish, and he might have guests, but he is the protagonist of the halftime show, Isa.
Yeah, and as you were talking, I know from my team telling me in my ear that Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, Elizabeth, was asked what TV, what channel the U.S. will have, the U.S. administration would have on Sunday, whether it would be, of course, Bad Bunny or Kid Rock, which is a concert being putting on by Turning Point USA, and they said Kid Rock, which says everything there is to say about both sides and how this administration feels regarding Bad Bunny. But it goes to the point that you were making there, Elizabeth, and this decision to speak and to sing only in Spanish. Can you explain, was he asked why that is important to him, the meaning of that?
Well, he left it very clear in the last album, Debí Tirar Más Fotos, which is a tribute to his island and to Latin America, with rhythms called plena, bomba, salsa, of course, and the trap and the urban sound that is very characteristic of Bad Bunny. So for him, he wanted to pay tribute to the island that he grew up with. We cannot forget that Puerto Rico suffered in 2017 a massive Hurricane Maria that destroyed the electric power of the island. More than 3,000 people died. And last year he did this residency concert in his island. He could have done it anywhere in the world, and he chose Puerto Rico to do it there. And it was only 30 dates, and he extended it one more to coincide with the anniversary of Maria. So for him, the music, the Latin roots are very important. We cannot forget also that this is, let's say, a kind of new artist. He has been almost a decade around, and look where he has arrived. He is in the biggest stage of sports in America, and he's going to be the main singer of the halftime show. So he has come a long way, and I think he's going to prove on Sunday that he is going to make Latinos proud everywhere in the world.
Well, I am thrilled to see him on that stage. He's on my Spotify list. I'm very excited. Elizabeth Perez, good to see you. Thank you very much. Now, Cuba says it's willing to engage in dialogue with the U.S., but without pressure. Here's was Cuba's president speaking earlier.
Cuba is willing to have a dialogue with the United States, a dialogue on any topic that one wishes to debate or discuss. Under what conditions? Without pressure. Under pressure, no, one cannot have a dialogue. Without preconditions, in a position of equals, in a position of respect for our sovereignty, our independence, our self-determination, without addressing issues that harm or that we may understand as interference in our internal affairs.
Fuel supplies are running low in Cuba as the US looks to cut off oil shipments to the island, and the removal of one of Cuba's chief allies, the ex-Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, has really heightened an economic crisis. Spain is home to a large Cuban community, and as CNN's Pau Mosquera now reports, many of them fear the situation at home could escalate.
15 years after moving to Spain, Chef Daime Hernando still prepares lunch every day with the same goal in mind.
To be as authentic as possible to traditional Cuban food.
She has been chef at the family restaurant since she moved to Madrid from Guantanamo in southeastern Cuba. The last time she went home to visit was in 2019.
Honestly, lately I've started to feel a little hopeful that things could change, that conditions might improve, and that I'll be able to return to Cuba. I want to show my daughter where I was born, where I grew up.
That hope, driven in part by mounting pressure from the United States.
There's no doubt about the fact that it would be of great benefit to the United States if Cuba was no longer governed by an autocratic regime.
Something the Cuban community in Spain is keeping a close eye on.
There's some mixed feelings, since the worst thing that could happen to Cuba is for nothing to happen at all.
It's been more than 4 years since activist and playwright Junior fled the island. He was harassed and threatened by the government and its supporters, who covered his windows with Cuban flags and blocked access to his home. Punishment for organizing anti-government demonstrations. He was allowed to leave, but some of his family stayed behind.
I left my son when he was 1.5 meters tall. He was my little boy. My father died in Cuba without me being able to say goodbye to him.
That pain, not enough to destroy his hope of returning, especially now, as a potential turning point for Cuba becomes a possibility.
Leadership in the island has weakened compared to previous years, and that raises the chances that the regime won't survive mounting pressure. The hope is that any change comes at the lowest possible cost to Cuban lives.
A sentiment shared by many, given U.S. President Donald Trump's focus on Latin America.
But we are dealing with the Cuban leaders right now.
Even if there's some skepticism about the ultimate outcome.
We can't call it positive change yet, because we don't know what will happen. But at least there is a chance that things might start to shift.
Artist Maciel Rubio Hernandez believes the only way to ensure a positive change for Cuba is to make sure civil society is involved in talks between Washington and Havana.
If those people were part of the dialogue, well, there would be representation of those who will actually be affected by the change, to let them express what they truly want.
Come what may, Cubans in Spain hope that any change, whatever form it takes, helps restore the country and improves life for generations to come. Pau Mosquera, CNN, Madrid.
It's time to bring harmony back to the forest. Please join us. Save the tigers.
To me, development delayed is development denied, and we have to change this.
We know the energy demand is going to double by 2050. We don't know how we're going to supply that demand.
Those countries that will continue to innovate will have a competitive advantage.
They want the data input and the models that they can manage and they can trust.
These little creatures love to relax, but they are also very hard workers. This year, a family of beavers helped restore a wetland ecosystem in the Czech Republic, doing what humans had planned and saving over $1 million. No concrete, no cost, just nature doing its thing. Be part of the movement. Find out more on cnn.com/call to earth, in partnership with Rolex and its Perpetual Planet Initiative. Connections across Africa are reshaping business, creating opportunity never before. on Connecting Africa. Follow the network of deals, smart conversations, and people transforming business to bring the continent together.
This month, Connecting Africa through financial services.
Capitec is the bank for the people. We bank the unbanked and the underserved.
Connecting Africa, only on CNN, in association with Afrexim Bank.
Every day we take a step back to look at the big picture. From decisions made in Washington to the ripple effects across Asia, Europe, and beyond. We follow the story as it unfolds and hear every voice to make sure the information is clear, fair, and relevant to you. In a world packed with noise, facts matter. That's what we do here. This is The Brief.
Olympic boxer Monica Leaf knows how to take a hit, but she was never trained to become a political target. Since her Olympic gold win at the 2024 Paris Games, the Algerian boxer has been subjected to a sustained campaign of abuse and invasive scrutiny of her gender. In an exclusive interview, Khalif tells our Christina McFarland she has nothing to hide and she's prepared to take a test to prove that she's a woman.
An Olympic champion banned from her own sport, caught in a culture war about what it means to be a woman. Mocked by the world's most powerful man. And now gold medal boxer Iman Khalif faces an ultimatum. If she's to compete again, she must confirm she's female.
الحقيقة هي فقط أنه أنا ما عندي حتى علاقة بالتحول الجنسي أو المتحولين الجنسي. أنا نعرف نفسي أني بنت، تربيت بنت، درت المدرسة تاعي بنت، مارست الرياضة كبنت، من اليوم الأول وأنا بنت.
For the first time, she opens up about private details of her troubles and her plan to fight back. We meet in Paris, where 18 months ago she clinched the Olympic victory.
What's it like to be here again and to have all those memories?
Yeah, Paris. It's for me. It's my story in Olympic 2024.
It made her an icon in her home country of Algeria, where as a child she sold scrap copper to pay for her training.
Thank you.
Congratulations. You're so beautiful.
But then boxing's ruling body banned her last year, saying she needed to take a controversial so-called sex test to prove she is eligible to compete. False and hateful rhetoric continues to this day by US President Donald Trump.
You won the gold medal. There were two transition people, they both won gold medals. The whole thing is ridiculous.
شيء مؤلم جدا انه تشوف رئيس يتم تداوله بهذه الطريقة. أنا فقط حبيت نوضح حاجة إنه أنا ما عندي حتى علاقة بالمتحولين الجنسي أو التحول الجنسي.
The president has repeatedly referenced your Olympic victory as a landmark case to support push to ban transgender women and girls from women's sport in America.
أنا باش نوضح للناس ونوضح حتى للرئيس أو حتى للسياسيين اللي عم يتحدثوا أو يتم استغلالي في المتحولين. أنا ما عندي حتى علاقة بالمتحول الجنسي، فقط أنا رياضية، أنا حابة ندير حلمي ونكون في الرياضة. من فضلكم ما تستغلونيش في مجالات سياسية وفي أجندات سياسية.
2028 Olympics in LA, she may have to submit to that test for a Games in Trump's America. Experts have called the test misguided, and recently the IOC vowed it would not bring back a practice that had dropped nearly 30 years ago.
We're not calling for people to go back to the bad old days of sex testing, I think, which was a terrible, terrible thing to do, and I'm sure we all agree that that is not the way forward.
Despite that, she tells me she is ready to face a test, but only if the IOC run it.
أكيد أنا شخصيا عندي ثقة كبيرة في اللجنة الأولمبية، وهي هي الهيئة الكبرى اللي لازم تفصل في هذا الموضوع. أكيد أني نقبل أني نعمل أي شيء يتوجب علي باش نكون ضمن المشاركين، ولكن كذلك ما نآذوش النساء بحماية النساء.
Boxing's ruling body provided no justification for its insistence on the disputed test. It came after a 2023 report alleging that Khalif had XY chromosomes was circulated online. She says it's fake.
You see the report? You personally, you see the report?
I have not. No.
The report is not clear. It's just a test, genetic test, with a company, small company of testers, but it's not clear. تم تعديل التقرير هذاك اللي تم نشره أشخاص اللي كانوا ضدي ما باليش أنا العداوة اللي بيني وبينهم.
While Khalif maintains that test is modified, she reveals that she has natural testosterone levels, currently a key test in regulating women's sports.
ونظن أنه أنا حتى لو هرموناتي مرتفعة التستوستيرون مرتفع إنه طبيعي. أنا حوالي عام ونصف قبل الألعاب الأولمبية باريس كنت نقوم بخفض التستوستيرون. كانوا حتى يرجعوا للتحاليل تبع واللي قامت بها مكافحة المنشطة.
You'll know that some people who believe that having high should exclude you from competing in women's sport. They believe that it gives you an unfair advantage. What do you say to them?
رياضة الملاكمة أصلا ما تعتمدش على التستوستيرون فقط. رياضة الملاكمة تعتمد على الذكاء، تعتمد على الخبرة، وتعتمد على الانضباط.
Even after her struggle to box as a woman in conservative Algeria, the abuse has been deeply traumatic for her.
حتى عائلتي كنا في مرحلة جد صعبة. بعد الألعاب الأولمبية حتى هذه اللحظة ما زلني مع الأطباء النفسانيين.
One place Iman finds comfort is among her boxing fans.
What do you say to young girls who want to be like you, who want to be an Olympic champion?
إنه لازم يتحدوا أمر الواقع. كل واحدة لازم تكون عندها الشجاعة الكافية لإبراز حقها واحتياجاتها لأنه هذا الشيء ضروري.
Christina McFarlane, CNN, Paris.
This is One World.
The world's top headlines with some of the world's biggest players.
Stories that captivate from two unique perspectives.
What does that mean for wider escalation?
One World. Zain Asher and Bianca Rodriguez. Weekdays.
Amazing things that are happening all over the world. Things that can make our lives better. That's the goal of my podcast. To try and find the secrets to a longer and happier and healthier life. And then we bring those secrets to you. Listen to Chasing Life wherever you get your podcasts.
Did the re-election of Donald Trump play any role in your decision to resign? Why do you need to study it? It sounds like you have the facts on your fingertips.
Great question.
You continue to fight for your name to be cleared. Why? Do you have any concerns about Elon Musk? There really is my and the world.
Watch the lead with News on CNN.
Hey, Tom Collins is your DC source, bringing you unprecedented access to the White House.
Live in the center of the political universe,
Capitol Hill.
My Democratic source tonight is Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. You don't get what you need from Congress. Can you achieve what you're trying to achieve?
And beyond.
We're live on the ground in Israel tonight. Where exactly are you suggesting that they should go?
Follow Caitlin for in-depth political coverage and analysis. And watch her on The Source, Tuesday through Saturday on CNN.
What entire neighborhoods like this into the sea?
It's hard for the city. There's many people without a home.
It's unclear what has been hit here. We've seen the warnings.
I can't imagine what it's been like for you growing up without your mother. You're here for freedom and democracy.
Around. I love all ticket games to the football. All the major events.
I love where the game is going right now.
What does it take for me to be better? Emotions sometimes are impossible to control.
The latest highlights.
When we supported the moment,
An exclusive interview with your favorite players. We'll keep this thing rolling.
Don't miss
CNN World Sport, only on CNN.
Well, the countdown is on to the official beginning of the 2026 Winter Olympics. We are less than 1 day away as the Winter Games are back. The 25th edition of the competition. Winning athletes will be awarded the most expensive medals in the history of the Games, by the way. That's because of the soaring prices of precious metals. Some of the sporting action is already underway, starting with the mixed doubles, curling, that's it, and women's ice hockey. American football fans are gearing up for the Sunday Super Bowl meantime, but animal fans are picking their favorites in the annual Puppy Bowl. Here is your starting line-up for Team Fluff and Team Rough. Unlike previous years, the halftime showdown will be Team Oldies and Team Goldies. That's right, it's puppies versus senior dogs. This year's event will feature 150 dogs from 72 shelters right across the United States, all available for adoption. The Puppy Bowl is part of the Discovery Channel, which is a sister network of CNN. They're all absolutely adorable. That does it for us for this evening. Do stay right here. What We Know with Max Foster is up next. Have a wonderful evening. I shall see you tomorrow.